It was an ordinary day, or at least it seemed like one. A young boy named Jake, no older than 12, was walking home from school with his little sister, Lily. The sun was starting to set, casting a warm, golden glow over the quiet, suburban neighborhood they called home. To anyone passing by, the siblings looked like any other pair, laughing and joking with each other as they made their way down the street. But as they rounded the corner, things took an unexpected turn, a twist of fate that would change both their lives forever. A group of older kids, notorious for causing trouble in the neighborhood, were waiting by the local park. They saw Jake and Lily, and in that moment, something clicked. Maybe it was the way Jake was walking a bit too proudly, or how Lily's innocent smile irritated them. Without warning, the oldest of the group, a towering 16-year-old named Ben, stepped forward, blocking their path. "Hey, where do you think you're going?" he sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. Jake froze, his heart racing. He knew they weren't friendly. Lily clutched his arm, her little fingers trembling. Without a second thought, Jake stood a little taller, placing himself protectively in front of her. "We're just going home," he said, his voice steady, even though his stomach churned. "Leave us alone." But the kids weren't backing down. Ben took a step closer, pushing Jake aside with a force that made him stumble. Lily cried out, and that was it. Something in Jake snapped. He wasn't going to let his sister be scared, not by anyone. In that moment, the fear melted away, replaced by a sudden, fierce determination. He squared up to Ben, his fists clenched. "You don't get to treat her like that," he said, his voice stronger now. The group laughed, expecting Jake to back down, but Jake didn't move. He stood his ground, eyes locked on Ben's, unwavering. And for a second, it seemed like time slowed down. The tension was thick in the air, and the group of bullies looked like they were about to pounce. But then, something unexpected happened. Out of nowhere, a car pulled up at the edge of the park. The door swung open, and out stepped none other than Barron Trump, the son of a famous political figure. At first, Jake had no idea who this person was. He had seen Barron in the news and heard his name around town, but he didn't expect to see him here, not in this situation. Barron, dressed in a sharp blue jacket and looking every bit as confident as his father, walked towards them. The bullies, suddenly thrown off guard, paused. They had heard about Barron too. Everyone had. He was known for his intelligence and, surprisingly, his down-to-earth attitude despite his famous family. Barron didn't seem intimidated. He looked at Jake, then at the group of bullies, his expression calm yet firm. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice even but carrying a weight of authority. Ben scoffed, not sure what to make of the situation. "It's none of your business, kid," he muttered, his eyes flicking nervously to the young man standing before him. But Barron didn't move. He simply raised an eyebrow and nodded toward Jake. "It looks like this kid is standing up for his sister," he said, his gaze cool and unwavering. The bullies glanced at each other, uneasy now, clearly not expecting Barron to intervene. Jake could feel the tension shifting. The bullies, who had moments ago seemed so sure of themselves, were now hesitating, unsure of how to react. They had no idea who Barron was, but they knew enough to sense that this wasn't a fight they could win. Slowly, Ben stepped back, his shoulders slumping in defeat. The rest of the group followed suit. They muttered insults under their breath, but they didn't push the matter any further. One by one, they slinked off, leaving Jake and Lily standing in stunned silence. Barron didn't smile or gloat over the situation. Instead, he turned to Jake with a look of quiet admiration. "You did the right thing," he said. "Not many people would have stood up to those guys. It takes courage." Jake, still a little in shock, just nodded. He had never expected this. He had never thought that standing up to bullies would attract the attention of someone like Barron Trump. But here they were, and Barron, seeing the sincerity in Jake's eyes, decided it was time to do something he had never done before. "I want to reward your courage," Barron said, his voice calm but carrying a hint of something deeper, something that made Jake's heart race with anticipation. "You got a lot of potential, and I believe you can do something great with it. How would you like to come with me? I can offer you something life-changing." Jake blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. Was Barron offering him a chance at something more? Something beyond this small town? His mind raced, wondering what this could mean for him and his sister. Before he could answer, Barron placed a hand on his shoulder. Think about it, Jake. You've already shown you've got the heart. What I'm offering could help you tap into something even bigger. A future that's yours to shape. But just as quickly as he had appeared, Barron turned to leave, his car idling in the background. Take your time, he said over his shoulder, but don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't come around every day. The car door slammed shut, and Barron's figure disappeared into the distance, leaving Jake standing there with Lily, still trying to process everything that had just happened. What did Barron mean? What kind of opportunity could he be offering? And what was Jake supposed to do now? In that moment, Jake knew that his life had just taken a dramatic turn. But what would happen next? Would he take Barron up on his offer, or would he turn it down? And most importantly, would this decision change everything for him and his sister, or would it be just another passing moment in a life filled with uncertainty? Jake stood frozen for a few moments, the weight of Barron's words hanging in the air like an unanswered question. He looked over at Lily, who was still gripping his arm, her eyes wide with confusion. What did he mean? She whispered, her voice small and unsure. Jake didn't know how to answer her. He was still trying to process it all. Barron Trump, of all people, had just offered him something life-changing. But what could it possibly be? He was just an average kid from a small town. What kind of future could someone like him have in a world so much bigger than he had ever imagined? Was Barron just trying to be nice? Or was there something more to it? As Jake and Lily made their way home that evening, the questions kept swirling in his mind. His mom would be home soon, probably making dinner, as she always did after a long day at work. He could almost smell the pasta sauce from here. But today, nothing felt normal. His whole world had shifted, and all he could think about was the mysterious opportunity Barron had promised. That night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Jake sat at the kitchen table, his hands resting on the cold surface. His mom had given him a long, questioning look when he had walked in, but he hadn't said much. He didn't know where to start. What could he possibly tell her about Barron's offer? She would never believe him. She would probably laugh it off as some wild dream. But the more Jake thought about it, the more he realized this wasn't just some chance encounter. Barron had seen something in him. Maybe it was the way he stood up to those bullies, or maybe it was something deeper, something that Jake hadn't even fully discovered about himself yet. But Barron didn't just hand out opportunities like that. Not to kids like Jake. The next few days were a blur. Jake couldn't stop thinking about what Barron had said. He found himself staring at his phone, waiting for a call, an email, something, but nothing came. He tried to distract himself, doing his homework, helping his mom around the house, but the thought of what Barron might be offering lingered in the back of his mind, growing more insistent by the hour. Lily noticed it too. She would catch him looking out the window, lost in thought, his face scrunched in concentration. "Are you gonna go see him again?" she asked one afternoon, her voice soft but curious. Jake hesitated. He didn't know. It seemed so unreal. The idea that someone like Barron Trump would even care about what happened to a kid like him. But Lily was right. If Barron was offering him something, he couldn't ignore it. But what if it was all just a mistake? What if it was some kind of test, and he would fail? He had never been someone who believed in luck or destiny. His life had always been about doing the right thing, working hard, and making the best of what he had. His mom had taught him that even though things had never been easy, they lived paycheck to paycheck, and there were plenty of days when they had to make sacrifices just to keep the lights on. Still, they made it work. It wasn't glamorous, but they were a family, and that was all that mattered. But Barron's offer, whatever it was, promised something bigger than Jake had ever imagined. It was a glimpse into a life that seemed so far out of reach. Could he really step into that world? Or would he fall short, just like so many others from his neighborhood? The idea of failing haunted him, but the idea of letting this opportunity slip away felt worse. The tension grew inside Jake, like a storm that was about to break. Every time he thought about Barron's offer, it felt like a weight on his chest, pressing him down. He couldn't ignore it. He had to know more. One afternoon, Jake found himself standing outside the park where he had first met Barron. The sun was beginning to set again, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. It felt like the same moment, only now it was different. He had made up his mind. He was going to find Barron, even if it meant stepping into a world he didn't fully understand. As he walked toward the spot where Barron had been standing that day, his mind raced. What would Barron say when he showed up? Would he still offer him a chance, or would he have moved on, forgotten all about the moment they shared? Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this was his one shot, his only chance to change everything. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, he saw a figure approaching. Barron. He was walking toward him, not in a rush, but with purpose, as if he had been expecting Jake all along. "Jake," Barron said, his tone calm and steady. "I was wondering when you'd come." Jake swallowed hard. I need to know more," he said, his voice betraying the nerves he was trying to hide. "What is this? What do you mean by life-changing?" Barron smiled slightly, as if he had been waiting for this moment. "It's simple," he said. "I want to help you unlock your potential. You got something special, Jake. I can see it. You just need the right opportunities, the right guidance." Jake looked at Barron, trying to read his expression. There was sincerity there, but it was hard to know if it was genuine or just part of some bigger plan. "You have two choices," Barron continued. "You can stay here, live the same life you've always lived, with the same challenges, the same struggles. Or you can take my offer and join me in something bigger. I can't promise it'll be easy, but I can promise it'll change everything." Jake's heart raced. This was it. His moment to decide. The weight of the choice hung heavily on his shoulders. Could he really leave everything behind and follow Barron into the unknown? Would it be worth it? Or would it destroy everything he knew? The stakes had never been higher. And then Barron added one last thing, something that made Jake's blood run cold. "But be careful, Jake. There are people who won't want to see you succeed. They'll try to stop you. And when that happens, you'll have to decide just how much you're willing to sacrifice." Jake's mind spun. What did that mean? Who were these people? And what was Barron really offering? Jake's mind raced as Barron's words echoed in his head. People who won't want to see you succeed. The weight of the phrase settled on his chest like a lead weight. What did that mean? Who were these people, and why would they want to stop him? He felt a sense of unease creeping in, but there was something else too, excitement. A thrill. The unknown seemed like a door opening, inviting him into a world where he could be more than just a kid from a small town. But as Barron spoke, something in Jake's gut told him this was no simple opportunity. There was a deeper game at play, and Jake was standing on the edge of it, uncertain of which way to turn. Barron's eyes didn't waver. "You're smart, Jake. You can see the bigger picture. You've got potential, but you'll need more than just courage. You'll need strategy. And you'll need to trust the people who are offering you this path." Jake could feel his heart pounding in his chest. The excitement began to clash with the fear creeping up his spine. This wasn't just about standing up to bullies anymore. This was about making a choice that could change the course of his entire life. As he stood there, contemplating the offer, a sharp noise behind them cut through the air. A black car pulled up slowly beside the park, its windows tinted dark. Jake tensed, instinctively taking a step back. The door opened, and out stepped two men in dark suits, their expressions unreadable. Barron didn't flinch. He merely turned to face them. "I told you to stay out of this," Barron said coolly, his voice steady. One of the men smirked. "You've been playing a dangerous game, Barron. You think you can just offer things to people without understanding the consequences." Jake's stomach dropped. These men were serious. And whatever Barron was offering, it wasn't just some simple opportunity. It was wrapped up in something much larger, much more dangerous than he had imagined. Barron glanced at Jake, then back at the men. "I'm offering Jake a future. You're just here to remind me of what I already know. But this time, things are different." The men exchanged a glance, and one of them stepped forward. "We have our eyes on him, and we won't let you drag him into something he won't be able to control." The tension in the air was thick. Jake's mind spun. He had no idea who these people were, but it was clear they didn't want him involved in whatever Barron was offering. But why? What was so important about him that it had attracted this much attention? Before Jake could say anything, Barron raised his hand. "Jake, listen to me," he said, his voice more urgent now. "This is the moment. The moment that defines everything. You have a choice. Take this path, and you'll face challenges. Some of them you may not understand right now, but you can't back down. Not now." Jake stood frozen, the weight of the decision pressing on him. The men in suits were watching him closely, as if waiting for him to make his move. Finally, Jake spoke, his voice steady despite the whirlwind in his head. "I don't know who you guys are, or what this is all about, but I'm not scared of you." His words felt bold, but deep inside, his heart was racing. "I'm not going to be anyone's pawn." Barron's expression softened, almost as if he was relieved. "You've made the right choice, Jake. You'll never be a pawn, but you'll have to be ready. There's more at play here than you realize." The men in suits exchanged a quick look, then turned and got back into their car, driving off without another word. Jake stood there, breathing hard, trying to make sense of everything. What had just happened? Who were those men? And what did Barron really mean when he said there was more at play? Barron took a step toward Jake. "You've got what it takes. The real journey is about to begin, and it's yours to decide where it goes. But you're not alone. I'll be with you every step of the way." Jake felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. He didn't know what the future held or where this decision would lead, but for the first time, he felt like he was standing on the edge of something powerful, something that could give him the chance to shape his own future. The fear that had gripped him moments before faded, replaced by something much stronger, determination. As Barron walked away, Jake turned to look at Lily, who had been quietly watching the scene unfold from a distance. Her eyes were wide, but there was a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. It was as if she understood, in her own way, that something was changing for both of them. Jake took a deep breath, his heart still pounding, but now with a sense of purpose. He wasn't just a kid anymore. He wasn't just a boy who stood up to bullies. He had made a choice, and that choice would lead him down a path he couldn't yet see, but one he was ready to walk. And so, with the sun setting behind him and the world stretching out before him, Jake took his first step into a new life. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, he felt ready to face whatever came next. There was no turning back. The journey had just begun.